What's going on? This is the Saturday Down South podcast. I am Connor O'Gara. Will, it is a playoff pod. I am so fired up, by the way. I know there's a ton going on right now and a ton going on that's non-playoff related. We've got a ton of portal developments that are really significant. I want to talk about them. I mean, Nick Anderson to LSU. I'm just saying. I'll bang the drum team.
Half the portal to LSU. And Ole Miss.
Goodness gracious. Ole Miss trying to get half the portal once again. What else is new? Jackson Arnold to Auburn. A lot of stuff that we will get to. And maybe next week at some point. Actually, you know what? Next week, then we got bowl games to preview. At some point in the near future, I promise, we will do a full breakdown of all these significant portal moves that have happened within the SEC and really across college football. But this will be a playoff-heavy pod because the first round is here. We've also got a great interview coming up with Eagles legend Brian Dawkins, and we're going to be closing the show with a little draft because it's been a minute since we've done a draft. We're going to draft playoff teams. So we have just playoff-centric show today. Well, I'm so excited for this first round and the 28 hours that we get. And really, if you want to include DJ Lagway playing at 3:30 Friday afternoon, really more like the 30 hours of football that we're going to get starting Friday afternoon. I'm here for it. It's a great time to be a college football fan. It would be a real shame to not have any interest in this sport.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about the structural, the sport, whatever. But at the end of the day, guys, I've said this before, and this was my guiding light, whenever we talked about playoff expansion. We're SEC fans, guys. Could be better for us. All right? So at the end of the day, we've had 3 SEC teams that all had weird, bad losses. The odds of those teams having those losses again next year are pretty minimal. So, you got money. Almost all of you got a favorable path to the playoff going forward. So we're not really in a position as SEC fans to do any complaining. And so now what we got looking ahead of us is cohesively, right? We got transfer portal, which is super fun. And then we got playoffs. And to be honest with you, man, like I'm, hand up here. Some of those bowl games where players were opting out, you know what I'm saying? The non-SEC bowl games, I didn't watch a ton of them last year. So I actually canceled the trip. I was going to Philly to go see my buddy. And I'm like, I got to watch these games. I'm locked in. I don't want to be out and about and missing even like the Florida game because that stuff matters. It matters, what DJ Lagway, what receivers he builds chemistry with. So, yeah, I think starting here, this is the dessert in a way, but it's like if the dessert were the main course.
I like the fact that these games are staggered in the playoff to where if one is a dud, then we're like, all right, well, the next one will be fine. Even if we get 3 duds and 1 good game in the first round, it'll have a different feel than a lot of years in which both semifinal games were duds. And we're kind of like, well, hope the championship delivers. And this wasn't really that fun. This wasn't the most fun way to crown a champion. And instead, I think we're going to get at least hopefully 2 of these games that are close, that are interesting, that are non-laughers. And you know what? If one of them's a laugher, all right, go do something for 2 hours, an hour and a half, and then come back and watch the next one.
Well, here's the beautiful thing about that too. If you got one championship game, a la Notre Dame, Alabama, I'm not going to speak on who's the head coach of the team I'm speaking about here, but it's a blowout. It feels anticlimactic. Well, a playoff game, if you don't show up for a playoff game, hey, I got 4 quarters to sit on Photoshop and make fun of you, number one. And number 2, there's no sympathy there. It's just funny. And if we get to the championship and that game's a dud, well, one of those teams beat lots of teams to get there. So it's really not possible to say, oh, this team's a fraud. Like if we have one side of the bracket comes out and smacks the other one, it's like, oh, wow, like this team's even better than we thought. So I think things being laughers is even interesting in its own right because you get to make fun of the teams, and there's no fraud allegations if a team gets a quote-unquote easy BCS-style path.
So, fun fact, and I promise we're going to get to playoff stuff. We're going to break down the 2 SEC teams that have first-round playoff games. So we're talking Clemson, Texas, and then obviously Tennessee, Ohio State. And then even Georgia fans, we got a little something for you, a rooting guide. And spoiler alert, you're rooting for the road team. I'll let you know between Indiana and Notre Dame. But that national championship, the 2012, and yes, it's the 2012 national championship. Don't do the dumb thing where you call it the 2013 national championship because it was the 2012 season. I hate that. I hate that. Wherein Notre Dame showed up on the same field as Alabama, and then Alabama said, "What are you doing on our field? Get off it." That game, absolute dud. Because it was a Monday night, is the only time ever as a college football fan that I loved it being on a Monday night because Monday at our local bowling alley was dollar beers and dollar games. So I was with all my boys. I'd actually just gotten my first job out of college in Nebraska. I got it like a few days earlier. So I was really kind of savoring the fact that I was going to be, like nights like that probably weren't going to be happening a whole lot, considering I was about to, move a 10-hour drive from home. And we enjoyed that night. It was a lot of fun, despite the fact that game was really, really boring. And then Barrett Jones pushed Adrian McCarron. And then all of a sudden we're like, whoa, we have something to actually watch. This is kind of interesting. Right. But yeah, fun night. Good memories. Good times. Gosh, it was already 12 years ago. 11 years ago.
We got to stop doing that.
Dude. Oh, I hate that. All right. Here and
Colin
now.
Klein was still playing. Anyway.
All these guys were like my age too. I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. All right. 12 seed Clemson, 5 seed Texas at 5 seed Texas. Texas is a 12-point favorite. Speaking of 12 points, the over-under I have for this one is 12.5. Actually, you know what? Let's make it 12.7. 12.7 Clemson points. Let's make it as exact as possible. Well, in Clemson's 3 losses this year, it averaged 12.7 points. In Clemson's 10 wins this year, it averaged 42.4 points. Among teams with multiple wins and multiple losses, that is the biggest gap in FBS. Okay, Does that make sense? Because that excludes someone like Indiana that only has the 1 loss, in case you forgot. And if you're just looking at like one score compared to, obviously like the 11 wins, it's obviously that gap is going to be huge. So that's why the distinction is fair. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. Clemson has not been a very good team in the games that it has lost. In those 3 losses that Clemson has suffered this year, Clemson averaged 5.3 yards per pass attempt with a quarterback rating of 105.7. Not great. Technically, teams hit 12.7 points against the Texas defense 5 times because, remember, Kentucky had the defensive touchdown, so you don't count that against the Texas defense.
Of course.
Texas, as we talk about seemingly on a weekly basis, number 1 pass defense in America in terms of yards per game allowed, number 1 in yards per attempt allowed, and then, again, a 4-19 TD to INT ratio, which is just absolutely silly. Okay. Right. That is really good. In Clemson's 3 losses, Cade Klubnik, 1 touchdown pass. Texas allowed 1 touchdown pass at DKR all year. And it came from Brock Vandegrift?
Sure.
Yeah, why not? Got benched. Another fun stat about Texas quarterbacks that they face and getting benched, just like we talked about with the Michigan stat in Texas of over 200 passing yards. The fact that both those quarterbacks ended up getting benched. In 13 games this season, Texas allowed two touchdowns to wide receivers. They do a pretty good job on wide receivers. Have I mentioned yet that the Texas pass defense is very good? Because it is. Jahdae Barron, he won the Jim Thorpe Award, not Travis Hunter. No problem with that whatsoever. Jahdae Barron, phenomenal player. Andrew Makuba, the Clemson transfer, the Austin native, he has been phenomenal for the Longhorns. He had that big-time hit against Gunnar Stockton in the SEC Championship. Dabo himself called this the Makuba Bowl. Interesting comments that I saw from Makuba this week via the Greenville News on why he left Clemson when he was a starter, a very accomplished starter, was there for 3 years, a guy that when he hit the portal, everybody at Clemson was like, whoa, that's not usually what happens. Clemson brags about how much it retains its roster. And yeah, you can say it's a one-way street with the portal. Clemson, by the way, added a transfer this week. How about that?
That was like, can we play him this? Uh-oh. Never mind. Go back, son.
So how does this work? How does this work? Is he good for the playoff? Like, how does this whole portal thing work? Hey, just fill me in. Fill me in on this. But here was the quote that stood out from that Greenville News article via Andrew Makuba. He said, quote, "My time there at Clemson, I just felt like I wasn't really getting better. I wasn't being pushed enough to where I could reach my full potential and my peak. The program wasn't where it needed to be for me and the whole team to be successful. After my junior year, I felt like it was the same thing. After that, it was only right for me to transfer," close quote. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know about you. That's a little bit of shade. That kind of, I wasn't really getting better. That kind of stands out, you know? Like,
as a program guy, to call out the program, I mean, that's all Dabo has left, honestly, is that he is the foremost program guy. Like, not to split hairs here, but, Kirby, you can look at this stuff off the field. With Dabo, he's still able to live in this little bubble and be like, listen, son, or listen, ma'am, you bring your son here. I'm going to take care of him. He's going to be safe. We're building the program. We're going to develop him. Anybody has playtime here. And so if you come out and you say, like, It's not money. It's not that Austin's awesome. It's not I hate the color orange.
He knows Austin's awesome. He left it to go to Clemson in the first
right,
place.
exactly. Right.
Oh, man. I saw that quote and was like, dang, that's for everything that Clemson prides itself on. The developmental program, right? That's got to be, if you're Dabo Swinney, like, whoa, that's kind of a slap in the face. And it's a little bit like what we talked about in the offseason when Princely Umanmielen made those comments about Florida's defense immediately after he got to Ole Miss. Now, Florida's defense has since looked the part, been much more, we'll call it discipline in terms of how they develop their defensive talent. So, that comment aged maybe not as well as it could have, but I still kind of looked at it at the time and went, you're kind of right. I don't disagree with you. And kind of with Makuba, I'm looking at it going, guy has a point. And I know Dabo, whether he says this publicly or not, and he didn't say this publicly, by the way. All he did was praise who he was as a player during those 3 years at Clemson. Dabo, call it taking the high road or whatever, but in his back pocket, he's using that as bulletin board material. Yeah. He absolutely is. And that if Clemson somehow pulls off this upset, you're going to hear a thing or two about that comment. You just will. I think that Makuba's he's going to try and drop the hammer on his former team, if I had to be honest. But just the way that guy plays, my guess is that he will want to do everything in his power to make sure that his presence is felt in a game like this. And sometimes maybe you can play to that if you're the Clemson offense. You get him to bite on a fake here or there. Maybe he misses a tackle in the open field because he over pursues, and that leads to a big gain. Keep your eye on that because that is a really important element. And one of the reasons why Texas, in my opinion, has developed into one of the safest high floor teams in all of college football because of how good that defense is. We know this defense has been a force, and it's somewhat baffling to still see people wondering, is the Texas defense like, is it that good? Yes. Yes, it is. I don't know how else to say this to you. I watched it all year. It's really, really good.
And to your point about the points, it's like, if anything, Texas is kind of more like, bleep it, gutter helm down there somewhere. It's not that they're not really moving. It's that they're trying a little bit too hard and overconfident versus Clemson, who kind of turtles.
Yeah, and look, I don't think that just because of the competition that all of a sudden Texas is just sitting there putting up 42 points against his Clemson defense, which has been really good this year. I think we could have a few moments in which Quinn Ewers, let's just say he doesn't exactly look like the second coming of Vince Young in this football game. That'll probably be a welcome sight for Clemson, who I thought struggled, at least in the second half, with the mobility of SMU quarterback Kevin Jennings. And then we know Lenore Sellers, nobody on that defense could tackle him in that game to close the regular season. Even if Ewers is feeling better with the ankle, I'd still question his ability to be able to climb the pocket, which maybe he's going to try and do that a little bit more often if Outland Trophy winner Calvin Banks Jr. is not able to go in this one. TBD on if he's going to be available to protect his blind side. But with that Clemson front, that can be a winning combination for that group. You put Ewers in those tough spots, you take advantage of those turnovers, and all of a sudden you're looking up and you're wondering, how can we close out an upset? I don't think this is a vintage Quinn Ewers game, and I think there'll be a handful of moments in which you're looking at that Texas sideline going, Arch, you got your helmet on? You ready? Your time might be coming. And then, boom, you snap your fingers, and then you look up and you're like, Sark, that's the difference. He's going to scheme one of these guys open, and he's going to give Ewers one of those big throwing windows, and maybe it's not Isaiah Bond, TBD on his health. He got rolled up on in that Georgia game, and it looked like his ankle was not exactly going to be in the best shape moving forward, TBD. But Matthew Golden is just such a phenomenal player. I love what we've seen from the Houston transfer. And then the peanut butter in the back of your pantry, Gunnar Helm. That guy's just always there. Always. So one of those guys is going to make some big-time plays in this one, maybe both of them. I think Sark is the difference. I truly think Sark is the difference. I think Texas wins this game in similar fashion to what we've seen all year. Not flashy, maybe a couple of big chunk plays for the Texas offense in the passing game. That overshadows a pick or two from Quinn Ewers, and it's a 24-10 Texas victory. If that plays out and Texas wins comfortably, this would be a reminder of how much can change in 5 years, Will. Think about this. Go back to 2019.
Please. Let's do it. I'm down.
You're a big part of why we did the time capsule episode this offseason, which was one of the most fun things that we've done in this podcast. Yeah. I would love to just do that again for a random year. But one of the things that is worth looking back on, if you had told anyone in 2019, ask them, man on the street type interview, who do you want for the 2020s decade? Do you want Dabo or do you want Sark? They would have laughed. They would have just laughed in your face. Dabo, like what? Sark? Is that guy going to hold a job for more than 3 years? Like, what are you talking about? If Texas avoids a letdown in this game and advances to the quarterfinal, takes care of business at home, I don't think there's any question that now Sark would be like a 95% answer to that question. And the 5% would just be the last 5% of Clemson fans that still believe that Dabo Swinney's about to win a national championship.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I would, further to that point, the answer was looking right at me. I was talking about the foremost program builders. I mean, look at Texas. You're talking about Banks being, the Outland Trophy winner, and the way that they developed the lines and the linebackers and the pass rush, and using the third and fourth string guys or these unheralded guys. Like, that's the kind of crazy part of it, because in our minds we think, oh, you got Quinn Ewers, you got Arch Manning, you got this money and the Ferraris or whatever. It's like, yeah, again, like we've talked about, that stuff hasn't really worked for them. The stuff that's worked for them has been more of like okay, like at this point, I think it's fair to say Quinn Ewers has been a little bit of a disappointment for Texas.
This year, I would say a disappointment. I would say if you still told Texas fans what he would do over the course of a 3-year stretch as a starter, not a disappointment by any stretch of the imagination. But this season specifically, did you expect to have more games like what you saw early in week 2 against Michigan, where it's like Ewers just puts that team on his back and he shows up ready to go and he's surgical? Yes, I thought we would see more games like that, and he has had more of these games in which that you felt uneasy, and maybe if you're a Texas fan, not as safe with him as your starting quarterback.
Goodness, man. Colin Simmons has 13 TFLs. That guy. Ugh.
They play so many of these guys as freshmen, Will. And Anthony Hill Jr. is another one. Calvin Banks Jr. is another one of these guys that played as a true freshman.
Sports fumbles. I'm looking at this. I'm like, I was about to say, Anthony Hill's like that too. Yeah, like that's kind of the thing. Is it's like, it would be one thing if it was Isaiah Bond lighting everybody up, but in reality, those are kind of the guys that are getting taken away from Clemson, are the guys that stick around and develop. And he's unfortunately kind of right about Texas. The more I'm thinking about him, like, actually, this is the answer. Again, I want to say credit to Georgia. They've done this as well. But weirdly, Georgia's almost hit on more of the, even at ETN, where it's like Texas, all the guys have been like the 3 and 4 star guys, the D linemen. The O linemen, I know, have been a little bit different, but they've all played together for a long time and had been mercenary stuff. So, yeah, it's going to be really embarrassing for Dabo if he gets in there and his whole thing is, again, ma'am, I'm going to keep your son, safe. I'm going to build him, I'm going to develop him. But you got Texas knocking the snot out of you with Gunnar Helm. And it's like, well, how does this happen? And so, yeah, I mean, another staple of Texas is Matthew Golden, looking about 6'5". I every time I see that guy play, I Google how big he is. And I'm like,
not big.
And he looks huge when he's on the field. I'm like, how is he? Huh? And you see, he catches the ball. He looks like one of those big old school Texas receivers that it's got the contrast, that bright white. And it's and so point being,
what's he listed as? 6'1"?
What's he listed as? Let's see. Let me look again. Let's see. Matthew Golden. It's not on here, sadly. Let's see.
Matthew Golden, Texas bio. That's your best bet for all this stuff. I don't think he's particularly big.
Oh yeah, he's listed as 6 feet 195, dude. Yeah, that is plays every big, time. Though. Yeah, plays. I don't know if I've seen a 6 foot tall guy play as big as he does. Good.
That route that he ran against Georgia, and Georgia fans, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The catch that he made on the sideline, where it looks, I can't remember the corner that was on. It might have been Dalen Everett. Was it Dalen Everett at that point in the game? Maybe it wasn't, and they hadn't made that switch yet. But he makes this catch on the sideline where the route, the catch, the high point in the football. When Matthew Golden gets his first NFL paycheck, he will have that catch to thank. Just an unbelievable play that you're like, what? It was like a Stephon Diggs play. That was what it reminded me of. Or these guys who just can have these moments and it was kind of casual about it, about how smooth it looked from start to finish. But Matthew Golden is a gamer and could end up being, if he ends up being their best offensive player in this postseason run, it will not surprise me.
You're right. The other guy like that is Stephon Diggs, because he's listed at 6 foot 194. That is the comp right there, because I've seen that guy look big too.
Yeah,
anyway, so point being, yeah, I think that like that's kind of the thing about Texas against Golden, like solid recruit, not exactly a 5-star, pretty high 4-star, but yeah, point being like fixing this patchwork together. I think that, and as I was alluding to, Clemson gets kind of like bashful, like oh shucks, in these losses. And I think that, they've had some of these nice stories. You win your conference, maybe you shut up Tyler from Spartanburg for now. But whenever you get pushed up against like the real, real McCoy, the real program builder, and it's through, not mercenary, it's through pushing you around, it's through imposing your will. I think that this style of team is so bad for Clemson. For Clemson, they want to play a finesse team. Like they want to play a team that they can punch in the mouth. They want to play a team that they can move around. They want to play a team that they can beat at the last second. And I think that, Clemson isn't Georgia. Breaking news, guys. Georgia is the team that can do that at this point. I think we can say better than anybody is win these like rough back and forth backyard brawl games. And Clemson has always wanted to be that. Even in the days of going all the way back to Taj Boyd, you could say, oh, they had these physical running backs. Like CJ Spiller was a little bit of a different style back. You know what I'm saying? Like Etienne's brother was a physical runner. And so they would try to punch you in the mouth, especially in the ACC. They get in the 4 and 5 stars and just push guys around. They get to the playoffs, they'd be pushing Alabama around. Texas has turned into that team. I know I keep saying it, but it's the fact of this is your nightmare for Clemson because they've stolen your formula. They have the city of Austin. You don't have to move to middle of nowhere, South Carolina. The second coolest place to play college football in South Carolina. You don't have to move to, maybe third. The Chanticleers are pretty cool too. And so point being like, they have all these things that Clemson doesn't. They use the transfer portal, but they also build. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a physical game. I know that I've picked Texas's physicality against Georgia twice. I've been wrong, but this ain't Georgia. This is a team that Georgia smacked. And I think that, say what you will, but I think they've played Georgia pretty close. We're getting backup quarterback. Not going to get into that. But I think that this Texas team has proven and been battle tested in a way that Clemson is trying to climb back up and show that they could do what they used to do. And are they good ones as they ever were? I don't know. But Texas is not the team to find out against. I'll put it to you that way. So I'd say this would be about a two-score win for Texas.
Who's going to be sweating this one out? And I don't mean in a literal sense. It's going to be beautiful 60-degree football weather on the sidelines on Saturday. McConaughey will be there. Dabo will be delighted to meet him, as he's already said. He cannot wait to meet McConaughey.
You've taken my 2 guesses for people that will be sweating, so now I don't know.
Yeah, seriously. Jim Phillips, ACC commissioner. You keep telling us that the ACC is just as good as everyone else. What's not as good as everyone else is if your champ goes 0-3 against the SEC in a season. Would be a tough look if that happened, Jim Phillips. Although I realize, I actually, at this point, I just love the Jim Phillips spin zone so much that I almost just want to create like a Twitter account that just hypes up Jim Phillips and just is like Jim Phillips and Ryan Bamford, they exist in very different universes. Ryan Bamford is more of like, by the end of what he's saying, you actually believe him. And Jim Phillips, by the end of what he's saying, you just have no choice but to laugh and go, all right, buddy, just move on. Mm-hmm. But would be a really tough look for Jim Phillips in his spin zone next year if his champ goes 0-3 against the SEC this year, when he spent all that time talking about how the ACC deserved more love in the playoff and, you can't put a 9-3 team in the SEC. And for what it's worth, I did not bang the drum for a 9-3 team for the SEC. But Jim Phillips had better hope that Clemson wins on Saturday and pulls off this upset.
And and I think that's the job, because nobody's better at that than Brett Yormark, the Big 12 guy, and I think it's a skill. I kind
of respect it.
He is fully 2 feet in, but his teams are backing up, because he went like, oh, guess what? We're the best basketball conference now. Well, guess what? We're like, and like he's like finding all these weird ways, like gimmicks to work it out, and it's like, we're gonna have this team with this team. So like, that's the thing, is the ACC is still barely hanging on to that like P4 thing. They just kind of got SMU in, but it was like a situationship. You might as well lead into it, Jim Phillips. You might as well go grab whoever you could get, because the Big 12 hopped you, and so, yeah, you still got FSU for whatever you want to make of that. You still got Clemson for whatever you want to make of that.
Yeah,
SMU looks like,
right,
exactly. Like SMU looks like the best team there, like, kind of going forward. And so, point being, like, you might as well just go actually lean into putting together, like, not going, we're the cradle of quarterbacking. Anyway.
We got the cradle of coaches, the Belichick spin zone, buddy.
Oh, it's over.
That's it.
Okay, and never mind. He's never going to shut up. Actually, it doesn't matter what happens in this game. He's beat us for this whole offseason.
Oh, I'm going to
Yeah, but how many Super Bowls you got in your conference?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, Nick Saban, he ever won a Super Bowl? Oh, he's not even in the SEC. He quit the
Couldn't
SEC.
cut it at the Dolphins. You know why? Couldn't be Belichick.
I'm gonna set up Google alerts in like April for Jim Phillips. I'm just what's the offseason spin zone? Oh, I can't wait for it. That'll depend, of course, on Texas taking care of business and beating Clemson, which I expect that to happen. All right, game of the weekend. Let's call it game of the weekend. It's the 8-9 seed Tennessee at number 8 seed Ohio State. Ohio State's 7.5 point favorite. The over-under I have for this one is 42% Tennessee fans in Ohio Stadium. Probably take the under. Take the under on that. It was Awful Announcing reported that SeatGeek had 42% of their resold tickets for this game going to the state of Tennessee, 30% on StubHub going to the state of Tennessee. I'm not quite into the ticket scene in the way that a lot of people are, but I know that's a little bit atypical. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to actually have some sort of split or some sort of Tennessee takeover. Tennessee fans will be represented very well. Okay. So I'm not here to diminish that or anything, because don't you know, Tennessee fans apparently got a hold of a leaked presale code and that benefited them. We'll see what the full distribution breakdown ends up being. I look forward to the unbiased portion of Ohio State media that I follow. There are some, Nathan Barrett's not covering Ohio State anymore. There's not a lot of unbiased Ohio State media left. I'll find someone that can give me an unbiased report of what that distribution breakdown is going to be, but it's not the best look that Ross Bjork.
I like how many media people you just scrolled through the entire Rolodex and like, that guy's not there anymore. There's 0. That was really funny, actually.
Yeah, love my guys, Bill Landis, Doug Lesmerises. Doug would be the first to tell you, not the most biased or not the most unbiased when it comes to this argument. I assume Doug is going to be there. I don't know if he will be for a fact, but not the best look for Ohio State that Ross Bjork, the former A&M AD, he got on the Fan 97.1 in Columbus, and he's asking fans, asking, pick your verb. He's asking Ohio State fans not to resell their tickets to the state of Tennessee.
I tell you what, man, if I have waited this long to say this, I gotta say it now. Here's the thing about Ohio State that makes me laugh at them so hard. They are unilaterally certain that every time they meet the SEC, it's going to go well for them. And it's happened like once. A day in 2014 where they played the worst Bama team of our lives until this year, or the Saban era, pretty much. And you won a natty, whatever, congratulations. Every single time this team goes up against the SEC in a game that matters like this, they quickly find out, and they sit there and you guys couldn't, we played Michigan at noon. You got kegs and eggs. You couldn't match this. Here's the deal. You guys have been arguing about the game versus the Iron Bowl your whole life. You haven't even considered what it's like to interact with Tennessee fans, okay? Because that's the thing. You guys think, our big rival. That's Alabama's second rival, okay? And maybe LSU. I don't know. Maybe the third rival. I don't know. But point being, these are the guys that y'all don't see in the Big Ten. The guys that'll travel all the way up. They would row a boat up there to go whoop your butt. That's what you don't see. You can add Oregon all you want. There's 60,000 seat stadium and they're cross-continental flights and they're filled but when you lock in and you see SEC fans and talent, every time you guys are going,
1-13 against SEC teams in bowl games. 1-13.
Is that just 2014 the one?
2014 is the one.
Yep.
That's it. That's all. That's troubling. And Mizzou was the most recent team from the SEC to beat Ohio State.
They sure did.
Yeah. Look,
because they couldn't make Kyle McCord work. So
yeah. Ohio State fans know it, that they have not had the best month. Okay, they have not had the best month of really anything. Basketball, not particularly good either. But what everyone wants to know going into this game is, what kind of Ohio State team will we see? Will we see a team that still doesn't have a clue offensively, that looks like it's really overwhelmed in the trenches, dealing with those offensive line losses, and they're going to look very overmatched against that Tennessee defensive line? Or will we see the team that looks like it's Ohio State versus everybody, maybe even in its own stadium, if you get what I'm saying? A lot of that could really depend on the health of this Tennessee team. I feel slightly better about the health of this Tennessee team than I did a week ago. Brew McCoy was available to the media, as was Dylan Sampson, who said that he feels better than he felt all year. That would be obviously really important for a Tennessee team that would love to be able to get him at least 25 touches, minimum 25 touches, maybe even more depending on the health of those receivers. Dante Thornton, who was one of those guys that went down in the Vandy game, according to friend of the program, Adam Sparks, he appeared to be at full strength after he was dealing with the upper body injury. So that's good news. Squirrel White, TBD, according to Adam, still in a flexible brace, but going through drills. Brew McCoy was doing work on the side. All three of those guys, non-contact jerseys in practice. Not a surprise. Not a surprise either that Josh Heupel's being pretty vague about their availability. Some comments a little bit more general than specific to one guy, so take that for what it is. Even if Tennessee wants to have a run-first offense, you're still going to need Nico to hit some big-time throws. And ideally, he's got all 6 of Tennessee's remaining scholarship receivers available to be able to make that happen. They've been hit a little bit in the depth chart with the portal. Standard, all right? Who among us isn't subjected to that at this point of the season? But Nico is really important in this game. Even if the game plan doesn't suggest it's going to be high volume, 35, 40 passes for Nico, that has not been who this Tennessee team has tried to be all year. It's too early in Nico's career to call this a legacy-defining game. So I think that's much. And, a loss is a 7.5-point underdog on the road against the number 1 scoring defense with the most expensive roster in America. That's not going to define his time at Tennessee. But a win? I'm just saying legend status is very much available. I think that would be a huge notch for him to add to his belt. And it would kind of make you move past some of the downs of this season, which there have been some for a young quarterback, no doubt about it. But think about this. The historical perspective is important, Will. Mm-hmm. The last time that Tennessee beat an AP top 10 team in a true road game, 2006 at Georgia. Shout out Eric Ainge, another friend of the program. Mm-hmm. Eric's also 38 now. All right. From 2007 to 2021, Tennessee infamously did not beat a single AP top 10 team anywhere. Own building, neutral site, road game, anywhere. 15-year stretch without a win against an AP top 10 team. But going into somebody else's house and winning a big-time matchup, that's not really been Tennessee's forte during the majority of the 21st century. And think about the best road wins, the best true road wins of the Heupel era. A question that we asked about Kirby, before obviously he began this really difficult stretch of road games this season. For Heupel, I would say his 4 best road wins this year, 2024 at number 15, Oklahoma. Obviously, Oklahoma ends up as 6-6 team. We knew what the stakes were going into that, Toby Keith Bowl, all that stuff for Heupel. 2022, you win at number 17 Pitt. You win that game in overtime, a little bit of a coming out party for that offense. 2022, at number 25 LSU, an LSU team that ends up going to the SEC championship that year. It was also Death Valley at 11 a.m. Can't really count it in the same sort of way. I'm saying that a little bit tongue-in-cheek.
No, they smoked LSU. That was one of the most impressive plays I've ever seen.
Yeah, and I would argue that even more so than 2021 at Kentucky, where Heupel wins a shootout in that game. I would say that's probably the most impressive Heupel true road win, even though if you kind of recall, that was the game where Jaden had the 4th and 1 in single coverage and still didn't make that throw. And Brian Kelly brings him over the sideline. He's like, eventually, you just got to trust us. And then after that is when Jaden
Brian Kelly's record after yelling at a player, guys. Look, everybody wants to yell at us. Like Chris Hill learned how to jump. What happened to Jaden Daniels after that game?
Good point. Very good point. Josh Heupel is 8-9 in true road games in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Sub 500. Look, I don't mean to discredit those wins. I just mean to say this is a different beast. Okay? Yeah. Tennessee takeover or not. We can all agree that this game is more difficult than any of those. Even if you think Ohio State and that record against SEC teams in bowl games is straight basura, which it is, this is still a different beast. And yes, the Michigan loss happened. If Ohio State loses, we in the national media will focus so much on the collapse of this team that was built financially through rich people to be able to win a national championship. And we will focus so much more on that than we will Tennessee. Okay, I'm acknowledging that. But even with a disappointing 2-loss regular season, here's what Ohio State does well. It's not just that the Buckeyes have the top scoring defense in America. Their defense allowed scores on just 55.2% of red zone trips. Will, that's not just the best in the country. That's not even just the best in the playoff era. That would be the best end of season mark of any FBS team since 2010 Boise State. And if it holds, it would be the best end of season mark of any power conference team since the NCAA began tracking red zone defensive numbers in 2008. Very, very good. Think about that. You get in the red zone. You're like, all right, we're going to score. We're going to kick field goal. We're going to get a touchdown. Coin flip. That's really hard. Really, really hard to be that stingy and that dominant in that area of the football field. Big game for Tennessee kicker Max Gilbert, who had a weird 1-for-6 stretch midseason, kind of worked through that. But again, this is about Nico making those smart decisions in tight areas. And when the scheme dials one up, you have to, absolutely have to give your guy a chance. If we're saying, buddy, that looked like Joe Milton, that's bad news bears for Tennessee. Not sure how many times you're going to be able to get Caleb Downs out of position. Hasn't really happened a whole lot this year. There's a reason why Ohio State is tied for the national lead with just 6 passes of 30 yards allowed all year. It's kind of weird because I don't know about you. These teams in a lot of ways feel like mirror images of each other. You know, like what they do well, what they don't do well. Like you question at times. Quarterbacks are at a different stage of their careers respectively, but like you question how much trust their quarterbacks have earned, and you always want the running back to get more work. And you know that the defense is one of the best in the sport, probably one of the 3 or 4 best in almost any metric that you want to look at. The other mirror image element of this matchup, maybe the single best individual matchup of the entire playoff, not even just the first round, but of the entire playoff. Jeremiah Smith, Jamon McCoy. Star Ohio State freshman receiver against the star Tennessee sophomore corner. They're going to have some battles on the outside. 2 guys that just turned 19 years old in the fall. Not quite Ryan Williams status, but just turned 19.
What a week for that guy, by the way.
Yeah.
God, I love him. Sorry.
Wait, what a week for Ryan Williams?
Yeah. Have you heard that whole thing about Alabama's transfer portal or Ryan Williams re-recruiting guys? Don't worry about it. It's unrelated. We'll touch on it next time.
We'll circle back in the full portal breakdown.
Yeah, exactly. It's ongoing. Yeah.
I missed that. Yeah. Those 2 guys aren't even going to be draft eligible, which is a crazy thought.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really disappointed that that Jamon McCoy is going to be ineligible for my All Bang the Drum team this summer because he's had too good of a season after transferring from Oregon State. He's one of my favorite players in all of college football because he's an outside corner who loves to hit, and his ball skills are just unreal. Bill Martin, their SID, threw out this stat. This guy has 3 interceptions inside the 3-yard line this year, 2 of which were in the end zone. 3 picks inside the 3-yard line. So for whatever reason, teams are still targeting him in those money areas. And he's like, no, you don't. Bad idea. That's significant.
Back to a report about Travis Hunter last week. Test that theory at your earliest convenience. If this is the time you want to pick on this guy, go for it. He would love that.
I feel like we will see some of those moments where it's Jeremiah Smith, Jamon McCoy lined up, and Will Howard's going to say, I'm going to trust my guy to make a play. I'm just going to. I don't know if that's going to be advantage Tennessee. I don't know if that's going to be advantage Ohio State. As much as Tim Banks would love to be able to move McCoy around, there aren't a whole lot of outside corners who have a combined 64 snaps either in the box or on the defensive line. That's how good Jamon McCoy is and how valued he is as an open field tackler. I would expect McCoy to be able to shadow Smith in this one. And I think they're going to force Emeka Ibuka to try and beat Tennessee. Tennessee's going to put faith in Boo Carter to be able to cover the slot. That's what they're going to want to do. If Boo Carter could make a big-time play in special teams, that would bode really well for Tennessee. The single most stunning development of this game would be to watch this Tennessee defense fold and get trucked. I don't think that happens. Only allowed 20 points once all season, and it was Georgia. Yes, Vandy had 23. They also had the opening kickoff for a touchdown. Pierce, Josephs, Norman Lott, those guys are going to be a handful to deal with for that Ohio State line, that maligned Ohio State offensive line. It's funny, Will, and I'm going to get to a prediction. That's a lot of breakdown. I realized I went through a lot of stuff there. Sorry.
But hey, how many times are you going to play Ohio State? Yeah, this is the playoff. This is what we're here for, guys. Yeah. We kind of didn't talk about the Kent State game or whatever, so we can talk about this.
Can you tell I'm fired up for this matchup? Yeah. Look, a lot of talk about the weather. 30 degrees is the high. our guy Marty Smith. Marty's like loading up on the winter gear. He's admittedly not the best in cold weather. Feel for the people that are going to be outside covering this one. 30 degrees is the high, by the way. Game time temps will be in the 20s, I would expect, for this one. People are going to talk about Nico being a Southern California kid. I've already had answered questions about that. He's going to be super cold in this one. Made it a big deal during that Tennessee-Georgia game that Tennessee didn't have the heaters working on the sideline for a little bit when it was like in the 40s or something. Everybody's like, oh, Tennessee's going to be soft. I actually think you can make a case that Tennessee's DNA would translate better to those conditions than Ohio State's, as similar as these teams are. And that doesn't mean it'll play out that way, but a high-volume rushing attack whose best player is the running back, Dylan Sampson, compared to an Ohio State team that has looked a touch lost offensively when it can't get Jeremiah Smith those looks in space. But these teams are extremely similar. It's why it's the 8-9 matchup. Only 5.5 hours for those Tennessee fans to make the trip from Knoxville to Columbus. I think this game's a grind, Will. I think it's a grind. Wouldn't surprise me if the winner is like the first to get to 21. Wouldn't surprise me if this game never really feels like it's out of reach. No team is really in any sort of rhythm for 2 or 3 possessions in a row. But I'm taking Ohio State to win. I'm taking Ohio State to win 21-17 because I can't quite fathom how in the world Ryan Day and this roster could possibly have their season end with 2 losses at home to teams that started on the outside of the top 100 in percentage of returning production. If you think Ryan Day will lose this game and keep his job, you're out of your mind. 0.0 chance that would happen. But I think Ohio State wins and improves to 2-13 against the SEC in bowl games.
So I will say this, okay? I actually think these teams are pretty different. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So with Ohio State, I see a team that is very by committee. With Tennessee, I see a team that is pretty consolidated. Okay. And I'll say it to you like this. Statistically, you could look at their rushing attacks and say, they kind of do similar things. But the difference is Ohio State has 2 running backs. Okay. They lean on 2 different guys. They keep one of them fresh. Dylan Sampson, Bishop's still bumping around somewhere. It's Dylan Sampson.
Bishop was banged up at the end of the regular season. I think he would have had a bigger role, but it's Dylan Sampson. You're right.
Right. We got a guy who leads the nation and carries rushing yards. You know what I'm saying? It's that simple. When touch. I mean, this is the best running back in the SEC. Probably the 3rd best running back in America. When we talk about there's 2 pretty clear front runners, Heisman guys that got votes from you. I think he's probably right there. Okay. Sure. The receivers at Ohio State, I think you're significantly better in terms of the guys who are playing and what you're getting from them. I'm not going to go back and forth and say this guy versus this guy because the guys at Tennessee aren't really that healthy.
I take Ohio State's over Tennessee's.
Yeah. And just based on who shows up. Okay. Now, what that has done is it's made Tennessee's passing offense, look more anemic than Ohio State's at times. However, the rushing offense, I think, because of that, is a lot more dependable, especially in those conditions. Okay? When Tennessee looks like crap, they look like the best version of Michigan.
Interesting.
When Tennessee looks like crap, they look like the best version of Michigan. They're a quarterback that can't really figure out what he's doing, can't just say he wants to run or throw.
Receivers 2024 Michigan, not 2023 Michigan.
This current Michigan team that just beat Ohio State. It's like, well, you got, you can run the ball a little bit. You have some of the talent, but you just can't put it all together. Ohio State is a team that I think, in the Penn State game, in the Michigan game, kind of start throwing a little bit of that S word, a little bit of the soft word, right? You go down 14 points to Penn State. You come back. It's not a team that's supposed to ever really be in that situation. I mean, that team is made up. Penn State is not a real football team. They're designed to lose the Big Ten championship. All right, that's what that team is put on this earth to do. So beating that team has never been impressive to me. And when they lost to that team, it made us respect their coach for 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Their offensive coordinator, Joe Moorhead. And so point being, I think that Ohio State has shown that when these games get a little bit harder, they don't really have that guy. They don't really have that Dylan Sampson. They don't really have that guy, period. Even last year, they had Harrison. That was that guy for them. You could talk about how it worked, but they knew who it was. Last year, Henderson was that guy for them. He's taking a diminished role because of Quinshon Judkins. Maybe Chip Kelly is saving all the good plays. Can't really. Maybe Chip Kelly is going to, for the first time in his life, look at the mirror and think, actually, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. But I'm going to go ahead and say that, considering I've seen him fall on his face kind of over and over again in the same ways, where you see, even going back to the Eagles tenure, going back to the UCLA tenure, Chip Kelly is not an adjuster. I think I can say that. I think he's a great game planner. I think he's a brilliant football mind. Connor, I think Josh Heupel's a pretty good adjuster, as weird as that sounds. And I don't think this is going to be an easy game for either team. But I think that when you look at what Tennessee does well, and I'll go to the defensive part of it too. I think that when Ohio State has struggled, their DBs have kind of gotten pushed around. They've kind of gotten out of position. When you have receivers like Tennessee that can't really stay healthy, you're not getting the full version of them. When you did, they weren't even like all SEC receivers anyway. You want DBs that played the way they did in that first half against Penn State, where it's like, whoa, we can't tackle anybody. Because you don't need to have 2022 level receivers at Tennessee to get open if the DBs are kind of doing that. But the back end of their defense has been a little bit suspect. Again, level of competition, level of talent never shows itself on the stats of Ohio State unless you have Greg Schiano as your DC like they did a while back. But point being, and even on the defensive end, I think that Tennessee has a little bit more of that star power. Okay, I already know one of these Islander names in Yamaliava. I cannot say JT. What's his name?
Tuamaloa? I
Sounds right.
Butchered that.
Look, I know the one I need to know. Okay, there was a chance I would never need to know this one. So, point being, he's a great player. Okay, and I'm not going to take away, from the Cody Simons and Jackson. I get it. But when you're beating up on inferior competition every week, but, 2 games, really 1 game against Oregon, you should have one of these guys who is profiling as an All-American type player statistically. You should have one of these guys that Ohio State often does, the Bosa's, and he's been fine. JT's been solid this year. I'm not going to take away from him. But again, statistically, it's not like he's been the difference maker that even a James Pierce has. So I think that the thing that I look at on both sides of the ball is that Tennessee is giga physical. And I think that Chip Kelly is not a great – this is so weird to say about these two guys. Oh, my God. I don't think Chip Kelly is a great adjuster, and I think Josh Heupel has turned into one. So when it's in the cold, I just can't pick against Dylan Sampson, man. I think that he's going to have that type of game. I know he's banged up. I know that. But, when you talk about legacy games, and I'll say this too. I've made this point about, this team before, but I think for Amaliava, got to have a good rushing game. I think you've got to have a good rushing game.
He has not been the guy as a runner that the Iowa game suggested he was going to be.
Yep.
He had 1 touchdown with his legs. I want to say it was the first or the second week of the season. And he has not had another one since then. And part of that is obviously because if you've got Dylan Sampson inside the 10, why would you not give the ball to Dylan Sampson inside the 10? And I thought they would use that a little bit more. And maybe that's a strategy in this game. Now that you're not worried about the quarterback depth chart, what's it going to look like if we have to turn to Gaston Moore to get us to a playoff game or something like that? And you can just kind of cut him loose a little bit. Maybe there will be more of that emphasis because I agree with you. I think Tennessee needs it. I think you absolutely need it in a game like this. And it can't be a game in which an RPO to Dylan Sampson doesn't have any quarterback run threat. Otherwise, what are you doing? What's the point? If those plays are a little bit too one-dimensional and you're not even getting, all right, Nico's already made up his mind. He's got Dante Thornton on the outside. He's hitting a quick slant on that play. If it's simply Dylan Sampson or bust for this offense, I don't think you could pull off an upset like this.
I agree. And that's exactly what I'm saying. I think you got to do something. And Thornton is a guy who's a bit of a nightmare to tackle as well. So to your point about the RPOs, and I'll say this. I felt like, not that he turned it around, but there was a strong game in there. It was the Batman game. And the reason why I think that is because there were key first downs that Amaliava was able to get in that game. I would say is against real competition, kind of his best rushing performance. And it was these, like I was talking about, it's 3rd down. You got to get a first down. It doesn't matter who's open or who's not. Do you trust your legs? Do you want to make the decision? And to your point, whenever I saw him against Iowa, the thing I said immediately was, this guy's smooth. He's smooth with it. He's smooth like butter. Now he's starting to get a little bit of that over-processing, But if Tennessee's line can hold up, I think they got to have that second element, whatever that is. If your receivers are starting to push guys around, Thornton has a great game. If Amaliava can have a great game from an RPO standpoint, i.e. making the decisions, okay, that could also do it. But you got to have that extra thing. Yeah, we know Dylan Sampson, I think against this defense with this O-line, I think it's going to be a legacy game for him and he'll play well. But if they bottle him up, you got to have 2 other things. You know what I'm saying? So that being said, I don't think it's easy. I don't feel great about it. but I think about a 3-point win because, as I said, I hate to say it like this and make it Mr. SEC guy here, but remember, Ohio is out here proposing legislation to protect their field. Tennessee fans, if you told them they could have carried those goalposts to Columbus to get a win, they would have done it. You can't legislate Tennessee fans. They are ungovernable. They are the wilderness people over the wall. And so I think that seeing these people in bright orange in your stadium is going to make Chip Kelly turtle a little bit. It's going to make Ryan Day turtle a little bit. And one problem that Tennessee does not have that Ohio State does is turnovers from the quarterback position. Say what you will about Amaliava. He's had some clutch ones. He's had some bad turnovers. But volume-wise...
Five picks all year?
Volume-wise, you would say, I wish you would take a couple of more shots. And maybe on the road, that'll help you to not take those shots. Because, again, Tennessee has a physical defense. They have a physical back end. They have an incredibly physical front seven. So I think in a game like this, where Ohio State is kind of reeling, all the pressure is on them. They've been talking all this crap about the SEC, and now they got to see the conference that's been the bully. I think a couple of key decisions, a puzzling fourth down call, a turnover, make them into this team that just lost to Michigan. Because at this point in his career, I'll trust Chip Kelly to adjust.
Jack Sawyer couldn't stand the idea of a flag being planted on his field.
Don't lose to Tennessee at home, buddy.
Don't lose to Tennessee at home and watch them take those goalposts.
You're going to be a witness protection, brother.
Yeah, Jack Sawyer would he self-combust? I don't know. He might if that were the case. But this game should be awesome. Should be absolutely awesome. Even if these games that we get early on, Friday night, maybe Friday night's a dud. Saturday we get a couple of dud games to start off. I will be holding out hope that this game will be a good, fun, down to the wire first round playoff game, like what we envisioned when we first found out these games were going to be played on college campuses. So many layers to this one. Cannot wait for it on Saturday night. All right, Georgia fans, come aboard. Join me. You don't have to wear candy stripe pants, but you should be rooting for Indiana to beat Notre Dame, okay? And I know I'm very biased. In my unbiased opinion, I think Notre Dame is an especially tricky matchup for Georgia, at least compared to IU. If I'm a Georgia fan, I do not want to see that Irish secondary. I do not want to have Gunnar Stockton, who I'm assuming is going to be the starter. I don't want to have his first career start come against an Al Golden, Marcus Freeman defense with extra time to prep. Best opposing quarterback rating in America. You know who's number 2? Texas. Yeah, the team that Gunnar Stockton just beat. What a tough draw that would be if Gunnar Stockton, his first 2 games.
No reason to play them both, really. It's a pretty good, yeah.
Dude, that would be really, really tough. I also wouldn't want to see a Notre Dame offense that is a rich man's version of Georgia Tech, kind of. Like with what they do well, 3-headed rushing attack. Jeremiah Love has turned into an awesome player. Riley Leonard with his legs is very Haynes King-ish. Why did I compare him to Haynes King? Why. Given Georgia's issues tackling mobile quarterbacks, that's pretty troubling. But 3 is an interesting number for both IU and Notre Dame. Little stat for the people to chew on as you're watching football on Friday night. Since 1999, Notre Dame is 3-23 against AP top 5 teams. That wouldn't matter in this game. Indiana, not an AP top 5 team. Georgia, AP top 5 team. It would probably matter every game after that for Notre Dame. If you're one of those people that's like, oh, I'm going to pick the Irish to win the national championship. I can't remember what their odds are right now. I think they're like 6th. I want to say, I can't remember. The significance of IU's postseason as it relates to the number 3 is something that I need the people to just pause right now. Whatever you're doing, you're in the middle of a set or something like that, you're in your car. I'm not asking you to pull over to the side of the road to hear this, but listen to the words I'm about to say and try not to just laugh as hard as you possibly can. Okay. IU has 3 bowl victories in program history. Ever. I'm not 21st century, not, since the Jimmy Carter administration. Indiana football has 3 bowl victories ever. Alabama and Georgia have 3 in the 2020s alone, Will. Indiana football, my school, has not won a bowl game since 1991. I was 1. Don't remember it. 2/3 of Indiana's bowl victories happened between 1988, Reagan administration, and 1991. That is almost impossible at a place that has had organized tackle football since 1899. That's right, 6-2 in the 19th century football games. Then the 20th century happened, and it all went to hell for Indiana football. So Georgia fans, root for some history. Do it. Trust me. Root for Curtis Rourke to be healthy. Root for Kurt Signetti to have a big, big Toby Keith win. Interesting, too, to keep in mind. You're looking this up in disbelief. I can tell.
These bowl games don't even exist anymore. They won. Hold on. Just keep talking. I'll get to it.
That's why they made such a big deal on game day of the Holiday Bowl that Corso won.
Yeah.
And why they did that reunion with the 79 team. Because that was the first bowl victory in program history. They've only had 2 since then. 2. It's hard to do that. It's hard to do that in this day and age of college football. Indiana has managed to do it. Interesting to note that Marcus Freeman just got an extension. That happened before the playoff, I think for 2 reasons. If I'm trying to connect some dots here. One is that if Ohio State loses, as you, Will Ogburn, predicted, Marcus Freeman's name will be thrown out there to return to his alma mater. I don't know that he would take that job. I don't know that he would leave Notre Dame. When was the last time a coach left Notre Dame to go to a better job? I don't know. What was it like at the end of the 2021 season?
The other day.
Last week. The other, and perhaps on the side of Marcus Freeman, his team. I don't know who Marcus Freeman is rep by. I should have looked that up beforehand. I don't know that he's Jimmy Sexton client, so I don't want to assume that. If you lose this game to Indiana, if you're the head coach at Notre Dame, you're getting roasted. You think Brian Kelly would get roasted after some of these postseason games? Buddy, Marcus Freeman losing that game in front of touchdown Jesus to Indiana in football? Marcus Freeman's going to be glad he signed to the dotted line. Let's just say that, okay? Georgia fans, if you want to go full Hoosier on Friday night, which I fully recommend you do, you want to go full Hoosier with your alcohol experience, play a little Sink the Biz, okay? Game that they talked about at College Game Day, game that's played at the famous Nick's English Hut, a Bloomington staple where we had our rehearsal dinner. Do a gin bucket. It's basically gin with Fresca, with lemons and limes. You put it into a big trash can and you drink it out of a turkey baster.
I owe you an apology. I was not familiar with your game.
Buddy, we gotta
put a Cajun spin on that. We can put some Sacheries in that or something. We can take that to fire. That's fire.
Gin bucket is a thing of my youth. I haven't done it in a very long time. The key is that you have to drink it with a turkey baster. And I would always do the dumbest thing in the world where I'd buy the turkey baster the week of Thanksgiving when turkey basters are most expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was just started because that's what was available to be able to drink something out of a trash can, but a gin bucket. Or Sink the Biz. Sink the Biz is much more fun. Look that up. I'm not going to explain it on this podcast, but Sink the Biz, B-I-Z. And Biz fries are great, man. Nobody knows about Biz fries. Nobody cares. But yeah, there's your Indiana rooting guide, Georgia fans.
So 3 bowl games Indiana's won.
You thought I was kidding.
I didn't. I know. I wanted to know more. I said, I marked me as interested because I'm ready. Okay.
It's the Copper Bowl, the Holiday Bowl.
Okay, so let's start here. So the first one's in 79 against BYU, who it appears was a pretty good team. I think they're ranked number. Yeah, they were ranked number 9. Okay, so that's in 79. You talked about that 1-point win. Okay, then we got the
88, 88-91.
This bowl, just really quick, the Holiday Bowl was the SeaWorld Bowl like 4 or 5 years. 6 years after this, just to let you know how far away we are from this. Okay, Indiana beat South Carolina in the Liberty Bowl. Okay, so that's like stands up, right? So South Carolina hilariously is in here. Like they got smoked by Indiana in 88.
Who could forget?
Yeah, and then we also have in 91 the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. Who, if you could name the sponsor on this bowl, I might give you, if this wasn't the Brave shirt, I'd give you the shirt off my back. Do you know who the sponsor of the Guaranteed Rate Bowl was that Indiana beat Baylor in? They smoked Baylor 24-0.
Wasn't it the Copper Bowl?
So technically it was the Copper Bowl, but the sponsor was called Wiser Lock.
Wiser Lock.
Which appears to be some kind of a like locksmith company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, door hardware. So that's what we're the type of history we're dealing with. Notre Dame obviously has a little bit of football history as well. Not worth getting into that. You know what's funny? I saw this subhead and I went, I don't know how this segment's going to be because America doesn't need a reason to root against Notre Dame. I would root for Indiana if Osama bin Laden was a starting quarterback.
Whoa.
Now I'm sitting here.
It's got hard height.
Honestly, Tennessee could use him at receiver. I think he needs to make a call. Anyway, or his son or whatever. Anyway, so point being, 1 star. Will is an Osama bin Laden assassination denier. Anyway, so point being, I was like, hey, duh, we're all rooting against Notre Dame. But this isn't even more. We learned about drinking games. We learned about the history of the Copper Bowl. We learned about yeah, I'm right there with you. And to your point, I don't think we need some extra reasons to root against Notre Dame, but I think we got lots of reasons to root for Indiana. Connor's going to be wearing a big smile. I think, how about this? Can you do the podcast in candy stripes if they win?
I don't know Candy Stripes.
You better get some.
I know.
If they win that game, you need to get on Amazon because you guys are a football school, all right? And you might need them for basketball. I don't know if Lauren, I don't know if you can put that on the company card. I don't know if that's going to be. I
was an Indiana basketball season ticket holder every year, and then I covered the team my senior year. I never bought candy stripe pants because honestly, I think they look a little ridiculous. Wow. I do. I really do. This is so bad.
Wow. Okay. So then, okay. Get some candy stripe pants if they beat Notre Dame.
Might have to. They're like $80.
I'll go into halves with you if you wear that on the podcast. You can go wear a Cubs shirt under it, whatever you want to do, because then these guys are, we're going to be winless against Connor. They lost to Northern Indiana or Northern Illinois, and they lost to Indiana. So point being, yeah, I'm all for Indiana. I think they're a cool team. We've talked about them previously, but it's just cool to watch. Like, these are the stories that this whole team brings us. So yeah, I mean, on one hand, bleep Notre Dame. On the other hand, it would be very funny if they were the second best football school in Indiana, and I guess Notre Dame fans would have to accept just being women's basketball school, which would be pretty funny.
Yeah. Fun fact. My brother did a story on the guy who killed Osama bin Laden. Yeah, did a story because he was really tight with Ryan Kerrigan, another state of Indiana standout. Ryan Kerrigan from Muncie, Indiana, went to Purdue, long NFL career, and he was very tight with the person who killed Osama bin Laden, was part of that team. So yeah, that's your Osama bin Laden fun facts for the day. All right, let's kick to our interview. I don't know, we got off the rails big time with that one. We did talk about turkey basters and Osama bin Laden. Let's kick it to Brian Dawkins. We really hit it off. Just one of those guys that if you're from kind of our generation, you probably have a ton of memories watching him in the NFL. So we talked about that, plus how he ended up at Clemson way back, the story that went into that, and then the new cause that he's spreading awareness for. So here's Brian Dawkins. I'm now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is Pro Football Hall of Famer Brian Dawkins. Brian, before we talk about your career, talk a little Clemson, tell us first about what you're doing with Boehringer and Lilly with the It Takes Two Health Initiative.
No, great job, Boehringer. Love it. Great job, Boehringer Lilly. So one of the things that I've been blessed to do is especially as an athlete, is to be proactive with a whole bunch of things. And my health is obviously one of those things that I need to be proactive, that we need to be proactive about. And so when I caught wind of the information that this program talks about, It Takes Two, that 35 million adults are living with kidney disease, yet 90% don't know that they have it, right? And the two measures, if you will, that could have you in that demographic is type 2 diabetes, which both my parents have, and high blood pressure, which both my parents have had or have, right? And so, first of all, I wanted to make sure that they are okay so they won't fall into that or go down the path of getting kidney disease. And then, so now if I can use the platform that I've been blessed to have to now team up with them to be a voice, a beacon, if you will, so other individuals will be in the know now to get those tests. It's a blood test and it's a urine test that you need to take to make sure that you're not going down that path to have it. I think that it's imperative for me, important for me to use the platform that I'm blessed to have to announce that, to get more people to test themselves, to team up with the doctors, It Takes Two, and then to get those two tests.
You hear those numbers, and yeah, it's absolutely staggering. I mean, it's wild to think about that in the lives that's impacted. Love to see you looking like you're in such great health at this age. I'm not going to bring up the age number, but
What
for
age? What age? What age are you referring to? I am seasoned, bro.
you're,
I'm seasoned. I'm not age, man. I'm seasoned. I'm just messing with you.
I love it. Hey, you convinced me of it. Absolutely. I would take health advice from you 100%. Let's start with your Clemson Tigers here. Back in the playoff for the first time in 4 years. How are you feeling about this matchup against Texas?
Yeah, well, so I did not see them being where they are, right? So just like other individuals, I wasn't cynical about them. I was just being realistic of what I was seeing through them, what their play, and some of the things they weren't doing. And so for so many things to line up, Miami losing and then them beating SMU, all the gifts that SMU gave them to allow them to help win that ACC championship game, and they're in the playoffs, right? So it's not how you get your foot in the door; it's what you do with that doggone opportunity. Is how I talk about it, right? So they have an opportunity. So I'm excited for them, and you got to give Dabo his props. Had Dabo and his coaching staff the props that they deserve to be, right? But being in the spot where they are for the how many years now, like 16 years or something like that. There's a specific run of him being either in the ACC playoff or championship game for like 10, 12 years or something like that, every other year or something like that.
You know, I have my reasons for why I was skeptical of this specific Clemson team and, some of the things that they did against better competition. What was that from your perspective? What were the things that kind of gave you that skepticism that this team would, have a chance to be able to get into the playoff besides just losing those important games? Like what specifically about the identity of this team?
That they would not be able to get into, or that they would be able to get into.
Yeah, what kind of gave you pause about them? And maybe
But
it's not even just a this year
what you
thing.
just mentioned, when
Yeah.
they lined against better competition, it didn't fare well for them, right? But when they're not aligned against competition that they're probably just a little bit better than or even with, that they fared well against. So that was my pause with them. And that was, pretty consistent. It's been pretty consistent for the last couple of years, to be honest with you, the last 2 years, that when they align with those individuals, those teams that are uber talented, right? That the score is not always the score is not always a good thing in the end.
How badly did you want to tackle Lenore Sellers in that South Carolina game when you saw? I mean, he ends up breaking. I think PFF had him down for 18 missed tackles. The South Carolina quarterback just couldn't go down. Like, how badly did you want to just get out there and be like, all right, we need to put an end to this?
Yeah, and not only that, knowing the running court, and maybe they did. I'm not in the huddle. Maybe he said it to his defense, but knowing that you have a capable running quarterback like that, you have to have all eyes on him. So I don't know if I can't remember whether in man coverage or zone coverage, but at a certain point, if you're not in man, hopefully you were in zone. You have to know that this cat is capable of running the football, and you got to get him down.
Are you and Dabo pretty tight? Like, do you get back there and get to speak at Clemson? Like, what's that relationship like? Because obviously, if you have an alum like yourself that obviously has done great things in the national spotlight, I imagine Dabo wants to be able to get you in town speaking to his team all the time.
No, I mean, if he needs me, there's different things that they can ask me to do, and I'll do, right? But I'm not. I don't go back there all the time. I don't. I mean, every once in a while, a couple of years, a couple of days out of the year, I'll go down for a couple of games, but it's not a whole lot.
The biggest compliment I can give a safety in today's world of football, which is much different than it was even as recently as like 10 years ago, is that they play the position like it's 1995. When I close my eyes and think of a 1995 safety, it's you. Like it's just 100% you. It's watching NFL films as a kid and seeing some big time Brian Dawkins hit. How often in today's game of college football would you get tossed for targeting?
Oh wow, yeah. Man, and here's the thing, it would have been difficult in college. Like I learned to do it better as I got to the NFL. As rules begin to change in the NFL, you learn how to adjust. A professional learns how to adjust, right? I consider myself to be a professional, so I would have learned how to adjust even more with today's rulings. But I'm telling you, in college, bro, oh my goodness, man, because it's different. I would say it's different for the young players today than it was for me because I was taught one way my whole career of how to tackle. Like you literally put your hat on the ball. And we're not talking about like a hat. We're talking about your helmet. So you put your helmet right here on the ball. So that's how you attack. So that's how I was taught. So now you have to change the way that you have been taught since Little League of how to tackle in college. Like it would have been extremely tough. I'm telling you, to not get kicked out of games, right? It would because I'm not going to hold back my aggression. That's number one. Like that's not going to happen. So the other side of this, I'm going to be kicked out of games. So that it would have been frustrating for me to, in college to have to learn how to then adjust my helmet, my hat angle.
I think you would have made those adjustments just because
Yes.
you were versatile enough and you could do other things. And you would have been able to. I mean, it would have been tough, but I think you would have been able to make those adjustments. How would you advise a safety coming through the ranks at the high school level right now who says, I need to play at a certain gear to maximize my own abilities, but knowing you can't be costly with your team? And there are tons of guys in college that deal with that now, that have that internal battle of like, I need to play at this level all the time or else I'm doing my team a disservice. But at the same time, I can't be penalizing them left and right and getting kicked out of games.
Well, hopefully those individuals have coachings. They have coaches that can help them in that regard, to help them channel that aggression, channel that willingness to do exactly what you're talking about, and channel it in the right way, teaching them techniques and giving them ideas and thoughts of how to then lower your hat, um, uh, not engage your head quite as much, the front of your face mask, not to the point you're going to hurt yourself, but to protect yourself, to get your face out of it as much as possible and deliver more shoulder hits, right? So that's the kind of thing that I would say. This you have to talk about the shoulder more than the hat, right? Leading with your hip, make sure. But the hard thing about it is, unless you are what's that, the headless horseman, your head is going to be where you're close to your shoulders. So it's going to be some helmet in there a little bit at all times, but you still can learn to lead through the proper side. So if I have help to the inside, I want to hit with my left shoulder. Why? Because I want to miss back. So learning stuff like that will help you to be able to take the proper angle so that you can hit with the correct shoulder. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And I think Andrew Makuba, the Clemson transfer who was at Texas, had a hit like that on Gunnar Stockton in the Georgia game in overtime there. That was kind of like exactly what you're talking about, where you look at it in real time and you're like, all right, that was definitely targeting. Then you kind of look at the replay and you're like, all right, well, he actually led a little bit more with his shoulder and it kind of followed the technique that you're being taught now. I thought you were just gonna say the advice you would give would just be switch to receiver. That would have also
Oh no,
probably been.
no! You have to continue to dislike offense. I don't like offensive players. Like I befriend them because I have to. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But
Um,
seriously, I'm not an offensive dude. Like I did not ever want to switch and play both sides. That was never in my thought process to do anything on offense. I wanted to punish offense as much as possible.
Breaking news: Brian Dawkins does not like offensive players. You heard it here first. Uh, take me back to your recruitment process because you're a Jacksonville kid. So I imagine Spurrier wanted you at Florida. Maybe Bobby Bowden wanted you at Florida State. Do you have a story that stands out about one of those guys or maybe somebody else recruiting you that kind of stands out?
Man, so my recruiting process was unbelievable. I wasn't highly recruited. As you pointed out, I was an area kid, so that is one of the reasons that Florida gave me a look. And so that was the school that I was. If it was up to me, I would have been still wearing orange, but it would have been orange and blue instead of orange and purple. But what happened was my grades, going into my senior year, my grades weren't where they're supposed to be, where they needed to be, and I wasn't a big enough recruit. Not big enough. Wasn't a big enough recruit in size, nor in the public's eye. For me, I would have been like a 1 star or 2 star or something like that in today's rating system. And so basically, Brian Zook came down to Rains High School, set in the principal office with me. Let me slow down, and basically said that we're going to take the scholarship back. So they offered me a scholarship. I wasn't a big enough recruit, and they took the scholarship back. So like I'm at a loss. Like I don't know where I'm gonna go. So I basically um, called up my good friend at the time, Patrick Sapp. He would have been like a 4 or 5 star in today's rating system. He was big quarterback. He was 6. Pat was 6'4", like 230 in high school, playing quarterback, option quarterback. So he could run. He had a cannon for an arm. And so basically what he did is he called Clemson because they were recruiting him and said, hey, if I come to Clemson, Dalk got to come with me. That's how I got to Clemson. So it wasn't because of me. I didn't know this. I didn't find this out to maybe like 25 years ago. After I had retired, that it wasn't because of me that I got to Clemson. It was literally because I was a throw-in guy, right?
Wow.
But it goes back to that point earlier I made about Clemson. It's not how you get your foot in the door. It's what you do with that dog opportunity. So that's what I did. Like that opportunity that was given to me, I absolutely crushed it, right? So that is my story about my recruiting, about how I got to Clemson.
Jeez, getting that scholarship pulled at the 11th hour. That's wild. I'd never heard that story. Dang. Ooh, absolutely brutal. Yeah. I would love to be able to dig into some more stuff with you. I know you got to run in just a second. I'd love to be able to talk algae crumpler hit, all that stuff. And how that probably hurt you. Real quick, that hurt you too, right? The algae crumpler hit, 2004 NFC Championship. You could still, like, if you don't know what I'm talking about, YouTube it. That hurt you as well, didn't it?
And that's the thing about it, when people don't understand it. Oftentimes we go into stuff we know it's going to hurt us. Because I knew that was going to hurt, but it didn't matter. Why? Yeah. Because my team was counting on me, right? And it was in a big stage, and I got to do what I got to do. So here we go.
Yeah, you did. You definitely did what you had to do. I'll get you out of here with some rapid fire. Just five questions. First thing that comes to mind. Does that work for you?
All right, let's go.
We're on the subject of health. Now that you're seasoned, not aged, but seasoned, what's something you do now for your health that you didn't do for your playing days?
That I didn't do when I playing days?
Drink a green tea, a little yoga.
Bro, when I tell you that I was doing everything, I was researching everything that I could for this body, for this vessel, to make sure that it was on high octane running. Like I have not, there's nothing that I can tell you that I've added because I didn't do it in when I was playing. I just brought it back from my playing days because I was doing red lights, all that stuff, IVs, all of it, all of the above.
That's impressive in itself. What's your go-to in-flight entertainment?
In flight entertainment? Yeah. Oh, I'm more of I read the word. So I'm reading the Bible or doing some type of devotion or something like that.
The Eagles have always had this face of the franchise during the 21st century. It was you, then it was Jason Kelce. Who is that next guy, and why is it Jordan Davis?
You said, why is it Jordan Davis?
Yeah.
So you just gave me the answer.
Exactly.
There you go, Jordan Davis.
Yeah. All right. Say something nice about the South Carolina football program.
Wow. Well, they won this year. Congratulations.
All right, last one. Pick one thing for this year: Clemson national title or Eagles Super Bowl victory.
Oh man, Clemson gonna hate me, man, but it gotta be fly Eagles fly, brother. Gotta be fly Eagles fly.
I knew that. Clemson already had their run. Now the Eagles need to, start a run of their own. They're in the midst of a run of their own. So that's the correct answer. Yeah, no, nothing wrong with that. Brian, really, really appreciate the time. Love everything that you're doing. And good luck with everything that you've got going on. Hopefully we'll get to do this again soon sometime.
Absolutely. Remember, testyourkidneys with an S.com.
Love it. Appreciate it, man.
All right.
All right. Well, let's draft some college football playoff teams. Well, this would be kind of a fun exercise to send people into the playoff weekend. We haven't done any in-season drafts, so here's how we'll do this. We'll keep it pretty simple. Just 1 point per playoff victory. That's what you get. No, you do not get points for getting a victory via bye, meaning like Oregon or Georgia, Boise State, Arizona State. If they lose their first playoff games that they play in, you will not get any points for them. Okay, So you don't just get an automatic point for them being in the second round or anything like that. So there's a touch of strategy here. It's like, all right, do you take the teams that are in the first round? Do you take the teams that you think can win a national championship? Maybe it's more beneficial to just take a bunch of flyers, although we're not doing anything for upset points. So maybe there's not a lot of incentive there.
Can I propose something?
Far away.
What if we add a point per round? So what if we go a wild card win is 1 point the next round? Because that really changes the math on Oregon. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if you make a championship game, I think you should get something for that. You know what I'm saying? Like how they do bracketology,
Yeah, the one thing I always hate though with people that do I do believe when we do March Madness, you should always have like increased points, but there are people that do like 1 point for a first round victory and then 32 points if you get the national championship right, which is the dumbest thing ever.
No. Yeah.
It's like just fill out like the rest of your bracket doesn't even matter. What's the point of doing that?
Yeah.
How about this?
Like Penn State could beat SMU and Oregon could lose to Ohio State. You know what I'm saying? And that would be like, not that would ever give them point, but you see what I'm saying? Like, let's say Oregon beats Ohio State and that's all they do, and then Penn State, beats Indiana or something, and it's like, you see what I'm saying?
Do you want to do 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah, I think that's the easiest way to do this.
All right, let's do it. All right, talk to me into it. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. And let's do a little punishment. A little punishment. How about the loser has to write a 1-minute apology to be read on air?
Oh my God, I love this.
And it's just got to be an apology to someone in college football. It can be a fan base. It can be, in your case, to Dow Loggins.
Other person's choosing.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. That's good. All right. So the punishment, a 1-minute apology letter. The winner gets to choose who that person is going to be. It's going to be really hard for me to pick anybody but Billy Napier for you when I win this.
It can't be a sarcastic apology. It has to be a genuine apology. Sorry, I was right about you. It's got to be real. Okay, I love this.
Genuine apology. All right. So I'm going to give you the honors, Will. First pick or second two?
I'm going to go second two.
I think that's the right choice.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna take Texas. I'm gonna take Texas with the first pick, just because we love the path. Like the path is should be really favorable. You're gonna be favored in those first 2 games in theory, and there's some wild cards that would give me a little bit of pause. So I think Texas has to be the first choice in this.
You know what's so funny, man? I think that should have been the first pick as I'm looking at this, especially because you're right. That path, I mean, they could get 10 dang points. There's pardon my math there, but that's a really, really, really good. Because I initially thought Oregon, but now I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, next up, I'm going Georgia,
who I would have taken as well.
And then I will go ahead and, oh man,
this is where it gets interesting.
This right. I mean, to me, there's 2 choices. I'm not just going to say them, but you almost got to say, oh, that'd be a rematch too. Rough. And then Texas is coming out of that side. Dude, you know what? As insane as this sounds, I think I got to take Penn State, man.
Dang it. Oh, I thought I was going to have I thought you were going to try and wait and get that on the next round because that was going to be obviously, me and James Franklin. Dang, I think you made the 2 right picks there. Well, all right, so we'll just do 1, 1, 1.
Yeah.
Back and forth. I'm going to go. Man, I think I have to go Oregon. Yeah, I'll go Oregon. Even though I literally picked Oregon to lose to Ohio State in the rematch, and I'm going to regret that. But if they get through that matchup, it is the only unbeaten team left in FBS. Gosh, I probably should have just gone Ohio State.
But this scoring system helps you because the more I thought about that, the more I was like, Oregon's not a good value pick because of that path. Right. So I think, yeah, okay. But here's the deal. Now here's the real tier switch because now we're getting into teams that I don't know if we pick to win a game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like in terms of, I just said I got Penn State. Like I can't get SMU because that would be a weirdo move at this stage.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm gonna do? I don't see that at all. Goodness. All right. Okay. This is gonna be a sicko move, but I'm gonna do it because I would have to do this on either side of the bracket.
I know what you're gonna do.
I don't know if you do. I'm gonna pick Notre Dame here.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I think Indiana has it. I think Indiana could beat Notre Dame, but I don't think Indiana could beat Georgia. And I think that if Notre Dame beats Indiana, they have a better chance to beat Georgia with a backup quarterback and get me that next point.
So you have just picked 3 teams on the same side of the bracket.
Yes.
And
I'm guaranteed points there, buddy.
Okay. This is going to turn into you pick the bottom bracket and I pick the top part. Because I think I have to pick. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to pick Ohio State. That makes me feel better about my Oregon pick. That's a hedge. I just did the exact thing you did. by picking teams that could face each other in the second round. But I feel confident that I'll have a team in the championship by doing this. Do you want to just round this out and you're going to take SMU or?
No. Because how many more picks do I have? Is it just one?
No, we're gonna pick. We're just gonna pick the rest of them. We'll just
okay. Okay,
yeah,
because I think I got my next two planned out. Okay, get this. Tennessee.
That makes sense. All right, you finally got some diversity.
Because therefore, if they beat Ohio State, that cooks your bracket, and in theory, they could beat Oregon. Hi, Walter. Who do you want, Tennessee?
All right. You know what? I picked them to win a game. ESPN did its 50 best players in the college football playoff, which I thought was a really interesting list, and I'm kind of upset at myself that I didn't do that exercise myself for STS.
Dude, I saw an athletic notification for Haters Guide to the Playoff. I was like, they beat me again.
I know. Gosh, so many content pieces that happens, and I'm like, dang, why did I do that? I'm going Boise State. I'll go Boise State. I picked Boise State to beat Penn State.
Yep.
So give me the best player in this college football playoff. That is Ashton Genty. I'm gonna trust in that. All right, so now we're really getting down to the thick of it. Just in case you need a little refresher, your 4 teams that you can pick from that are left are Arizona State, Indiana, SMU, and Clemson.
Okay, so this to me is easy. I'm going Clemson here because, again, Dabo has 2 national championships. I don't think he's going to beat Texas. I just think he's smoked by Texas. But if he beats Texas, I think he can beat Arizona State.
So by that logic,
this rules. This is going to be such a mess.
Dang. What do I do? Do I hedge? You know what? No. Give me. You already have Penn State. Give me SMU.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I have no faith in Indiana, do I? So SMU, Arizona State, who you want? I like both these teams so much too. That's
who
kind
took
of the crazy
Indiana?
thing about it. You'll take Indiana?
No. I asked you who took. You said
no. Those are the 2 left. Indiana and Arizona State are the 2 teams left.
Okay, got it.
I
mean, man, out of those 2, you got to take Indiana.
All right. I'll take Arizona State then.
I should have done the tic-tac-toe move and gotten both of those guys in case either of them beat Texas. But I now can't take it back. I'm locked in. I have an entire quadrant of the bracket. This is so funny.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Well, so look, if you were going to pick Indiana, because look, if they win, then I get to talk crap to you. That's what I was imagining, but that wasn't smart.
You don't have the entire quadrant because you don't have SMU.
No. I was talking about that. You're right. Yeah. I was talking about that part of the bracket.
Okay, so to recap it, my 6 teams, I have Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, Boise State, SMU, Arizona State. Will has Georgia, Penn State, Notre Dame, Tennessee, Clemson, Indiana.
But you know what's so funny and why I love that pick too is that think about this. If you end up with Arizona State, let's say Clemson beats Texas, again, puncher's chance for Arizona State. That's the thing. You could end up with a free couple of points there because Clemson wins. Even if you have Texas, it's a very good backdoor hedge there.
Yeah. I feel good that I'm going to get the team that comes out of the top part of the bracket.
Mm-hmm.
I feel very confident that. Less so that I will get the team that emerges from the lower part of the bracket. Basically, Boise State beating Penn State would be monumental for my
That
chances.
would win I'd be cooked if that happened. Just as Clemson, we're going to be locked into that Clemson game.
And I just, one of the things I was talking about this week too is I was like, gosh, I kind of love that Drew Aller came out with that announcement. While everybody's talking about the backup quarterback situation and hitting the portal and how this is an indictment of the playoff system, which I agree, it's messed up that it has to happen this way. But I loved that Drew Aller came out and said, I'm coming back. Not going to be dependent on what happens in the playoff. He's not going to worry about is this throw going to hurt my draft stock? Just go out there and play football. Go out there and play football, worry about everything else. He's become such a better player this year too. Dang. I'm saying nice things about Penn State, and here I am just hedging all my bets against them. We'll see if that works out.
If he were going pro, let's just say, let's say if he were going pro, would you rather him announce that before or keep it close to the vest?
Before. One last ride.
That's a good point. Then it's all right, guys, let's get it. Okay, good point. So I think either way, waiting is not the move. I think either way, you got to let your boys know. Yep.
I think so too. Yeah. All right. We will update the people. I will totally not forget that we did this. I'll make sure to keep this in my Iowa notepad filed away.
Oh yeah.
And we will circle back on a later date. That was fun.
Yeah, I think I have mine around here. Oh yeah, I got mine. Look at that. Who do you have? I have
On your Iowa
CJ.
notepad?
Yeah, I have CJ
Bethard? Yeah.
Yeah, you
Still
have
in the
Bethard as
NFL?
well.
Oh, I got Bethard too. Yeah.
Yeah, well, see, this might have got him a job, young man. This might actually LinkedIn profile right here. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, look, so we just now discovered we need to have stakes on all these because I'm gonna be locked in. I'm gonna be locked in now. All right, send me a cell phone photo of that. I'll have it bookmarked. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'll send you a woof. If you know, you know.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
All right. If you have not, please leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch every single episode of the Saturday Down South podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the SDS Pod, at Set Down South, at CJ O'Gara, at Goes Hard. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.